Good afternoon, everybody. It is 4 o'clock, so with that, I call the Johnson County Library Board of Directors for the September meeting to order. Thank you for attending, and for any of those listening, or watching on, Facebook, right? Thank you for listening and watching. And then Patty's informed me we're on, 3 consecutive meetings. We've ended at 5:42, so I know betting is legal, sports betting is legal now in Kansas, but I don't think you can bet on the library board meetings. I think Fred would probably frown upon that, so we won't try to shoot for 5:42 again. We'll just end it when it makes sense to end it, so.
Maybe earlier.
Yes, maybe earlier. We'll see how it goes. So with that, we've got one comment where somebody wrote in.
Yes, we have one citizen comment. This is submitted by Karen Wolfcole, and the comment reads as such. The Johnson County League of Women Voters, a nonpartisan grassroots civic organization, encourages informed and active participation in government. One way it does this is by observing entities with taxing authority in order to keep abreast of fiscal and policy decisions that affect the public. As a league member, I regularly attend the library board meetings and provide a brief summary for the league's newsletter. At the August meeting, the county librarian reported on the election support provided by the library. On behalf of the league, thank you for making voting accessible across the county by providing space at selected branches for advanced voting, drop box sites, and election day polling sites. The library's commitment to democracy is also demonstrated by the longtime partnership with the league to host legislative forums, an important way to educate and inform voters about candidates and issues. The current team, headed by one of our librarians, Ashley Fick, is to be commended for her work. The league looks forward to continuing our work together. Thank you, Karen, and the League of Women Voters.
Thank you. Is there any other citizens' comments? I think so. All right, moving on. Anybody from the board that would like to make a comment?
I have a comment. I just wanted to let you know that under our new business, I have a statement that I'd like to read about our late fines in relation to new business item number A. So if you wouldn't mind remembering me at that time. Thank you.
I'll try my best. Anybody else? All right, well, thank you very much. All right, moving on. I think Shanta's here from the, I don't have any additional comments, so. Shanta from the Friends of the Library with her report.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for allowing this time to report on recent news and accomplishments. On behalf of the Friends of Johnson County Library, I am Shanta Dickerson, Operations Director, and this month, just delving into what has been our continuation of Strategic Goal 3.1. Within the Friends Strategic Plan, our Finance Committee, I love the Finance Committee, I just say that, is tasked with determining the best way to advance operations and net revenues of all book sale divisions. That's Goal 3.1. So we've been really living in this for most of the year. Specifically July and August were busy months surrounding the school as we closed our branch bookstores, expanded our pop-up sale frequency, and reallocated payroll to accommodate these changes. We've eliminated the bookstore manager position, and we've added a second sorting and sales specialist to assist with Saturday sale coverage and train and guide the sorting and sale volunteers who give us their time at least one day a week. And our ranks are growing. They're currently exceeding pre-pandemic numbers. We have over 100 volunteers who are with us Monday through Saturday. That doesn't count folks who just drop in, maybe to pick up community service hours or whatnot. And that doesn't include our internet sales volunteers. That's just folks running the front and the back of the house. And we're taking more, replacing more, so it's wonderful. Additionally, donation acceptance has expanded to nearly all Johnson County Library branches, as Corinth launched on September 1st, and we know Corinth is thrilled for the return of this service. Just based on history, that location is second only to Blue Valley for library users and patrons, reaching 75% of the materials collected through Blue Valley in 2019. You wouldn't know that looking at Blue Valley's book barn compared to Corinth's modest spot, but they do business there. And these are all part of the implementation of tactics 3.1.3 and 3.1.4 to ensure we have the most efficient use of our space and streamlined operations that support our mission funding while also aligning with Johnson County Library facilities and operational needs. We do take stewardship seriously, and we have learned to let go of some of our legacy processes, which are inefficient and costly. And we do, just to be clear, we continue to sell books, only now we do it in ways that are not revenue drains for the organization. And so, again, thank you for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Very good report. Thank you. All right, next is Stephanie from the foundation.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Stephanie Stolsteimer. I'm delighted to report on behalf of the foundation. I have a couple of events I would like to report on. First is an appreciation and fundraising event for the 1952 Society and Readers Circle. We are thrilled to add an event called A Conversation with Candace Millard and Steve Kraske. It just came together because they're a magical pair. The 1952 Society is the foundation's planned giving initiative, and the Readers Circle includes donors who have given $10,000 cumulatively over time. We're bringing this group together. It was a donation to attend this event. There was 30 seats, and then we went ahead and upped it a little bit because our hosts were gracious enough to say that was okay. The hosts are actually Carol and Fred Logan, along with Erica and Andy Logan. Candace and Steve are going to do a wonderful program for us. Candace is a 4-time New York Times bestselling author, including this year's release, River of the Gods. Steve Kraske is an award-winning print and broadcast journalist, most known for his Kansas City Star reporting and host with a KCUR FM program. The second event is Library Lets Loose. You've known about this all year. It's coming September 17th. It's thrilling to have all the community support. Sponsorships, donations, ticket sales are all going very well. I want to thank again Senya and Will Shields, who are the honorary hosts. And by the way, we have a prize drawing for every $100 donation. You could win a number of prizes. I've mentioned them before. And we have a couple of pairs of tickets to the Candace Millard and Steve Kraske event. So we're very excited to have all that cooking. Finally, I want to draw to your attention some cards that are at each of your places. These are cards from the development department with the themes of help, join, give. They're sorted, and you all have something different. And they are just cards that we have at the branches and through some other distribution channels. Just cards about how to volunteer and the cool things about being a volunteer, how to be a friend and the cool things about being a friend, how to give to the foundation and how great it is. I want to express my appreciation to Christopher Leach and the CX department for making these happen. So that is all I have. Any questions? Oh, thank you. I know a lot of you are coming or have made a donation, so thank you so much.
Thank you. We look forward to it. All right, Janae, our report from the county commissioners.
Well, thank you. I appreciate being here today. First of all, I wanted to welcome back Joe Waters, who is from our county manager's office. There's been a little bit of reshuffling, and Joe had been our liaison for quite a while, and then we had Joe Connor, and now we have Joe Waters again. So welcome back, Joe. It's good to see you. Secondly, not a whole lot to report, but the biggest news, I suppose, from the county is that we did do the final passage of our 2023 county budget. It's about $1.6 billion, which sounds huge, but when you actually break it down, about close to 500 million of that is in reserves, and a lot of it has to do with wastewater, which is not funded through property taxes. So it sounds huge, but there's a purpose for each of those dollars. But I did want to mention that one of the things that I think the board is especially proud of is that we were able to pass a budget that includes a 1 mil rollback, which is the largest one-time rollback in the mill levy in about 20 years. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that homeowners will not see any kind of increase in their property taxes, but it certainly won't be what it would have been had we not done that rollback. In addition, it adds 4 new sheriff's office positions, 2 positions in the Department of Emergency Services to answer 911 calls, 1 victim advocate for the district attorney's office to help address a backlog of cases, and a new housing coordinator to focus on housing insecurity and affordability, and 3 Johnson County Mental Health Center positions. This was a tough budget this year because, as taxpayers and property owners, which includes me, most of us saw a large increase in the value of our homes. At the same time, the county is also struggling with the same things a lot of businesses are, which includes workforce shortage and inflation. In fact, just a few months ago, the MedAct, Director of MedAct came to us and said, hey, we need to make a large purchase for some ambulances because of the supply chain problems. We can't wait till next year to get these. We have to get it while we have it available. So the budget is a balance between recognizing those higher appraised values and trying to provide some relief to taxpayers while also continuing to fund the services we need, like ambulance and fire and parks and libraries and mental health services, aging services, all of those things that people, really their lives depend on. So was everybody happy about the budget? No, but I feel like it was a good compromise given all of the different issues that we had to incorporate into that budget. Any questions about that? Two more quick things. One is, this is a request. Someone brought to my attention that the library had a list of county services on a card as part of, I think, the contest, what do I like most about my county? If anyone has one or a few of those, I would love to have some. So don't know if anybody here is familiar with what I'm talking about, but I would love to have it. Thank you. And then finally, my book of the month. This is one, if you don't have the library app, you really need to have the library app. Because I look on it all the time, and there's suggestions that come up. And recently, one came up that really intrigued me. I don't know if this is meant to be a children's book or what, but I had to check it out. It's called Things to Look Forward to, 52 Large and Small Joys for Today and Every Day. And I thought, I don't know about you, but I can use this. and things like coffee, which is a huge joy for me every morning, a hot shower. And things we take for granted, that being grateful and having that attitude of gratitude. So I haven't really gotten through all of it yet, but I'm looking forward to it. So that's my book recommendation. So if there are any other questions, I'd be glad to take them.
Nope, good advice.
Thank
Need to,
you.
don't forget about the little things sometimes, right?
Yes.
All right, moving on to report from the Board Council. So Fred, I think you're going to take it away.
Thank you. I am going to talk about it says Senate Bill 13 and tax resolution. That is correct, but also talk about how that law was changed in this past session to make certain additional requirements that separate taxing districts like the library district then have to work with the Board of County Commissioners on budgeting. And so you will approve a resolution today that brings you into line with the budget that is being approved by the Board of County Commissioners. One of the things that I wanted to talk about was that in this whole process was established in the 2021 legislative session, and I made a report to you, and we followed this last year. And then in the 2022 session, additional changes were made. And one of the changes you saw in the draft resolution that we prepared, and that is that you will approve this by a roll call vote. So we're all set up to do that. And that's not something we dreamed up. That's something that appears in the statute. The other thing is that, and I've advised the board chair of this, that when we get to that item on the agenda, the law in question now says that the vote of the governing body shall be, which is you, as the governing body of the library district, shall be conducted at the public hearing after the governing body has heard from interested taxpayers and shall be a roll call vote. So the board chair knows that he's going to ask if there's anyone here who wishes to address this particular item. But that, I think, gives you a good explanation on that. It's important that the board adopt this resolution because we've gone through a budget process. We've had a joint meeting with the commission. We're going to start a new budget process in January. And so, but adoption of this resolution puts us in compliance with the statute, and that's the reason that it's on there. So, any questions about that?
Right, I have just one question. In terms of the public comment portion of that, do we have a requirement of announcing to the public that we were going to have that vote today, and did we do that? I don't know.
That's through the law, and anybody who would have seen the item would see that this is coming up. And so I think that they have no adequate notice through the law itself that they have that opportunity. So I just wanted to point out that I've already counseled the chair to ask if there's anyone who wishes to be heard on it.
Got it, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Fred. And moving on to the county library report with Tricia.
We'll have our finance director, Dave, come to the podium for the financial report.
Thanks, Tricia, and good afternoon, Library Board. I'm going to direct you to the revenue part of the budget packet, of the board packet for this evening, page 7. We're covering revenues as of the end of July, so we're about 58% of the way through the year as of the end of July. We've collected approximately $39.9 million, or about 91% of what is anticipated for the year. So we've got about $4 million or so left to collect for 2022 based on our revenue projections for this year. As of the end of July, we had spent almost $26.7 million, and this includes our encumbrances along with actual expenses year to date. And if you took just the collections encumbrances out of that, so it's 61% is what we've obligated to at this point. But if you just took the collections encumbrances out, it takes us down to about 56%. So you can see that we're tracking from an actual expense standpoint under where we would expect to be at this point in the year from a time perspective. So with that, I'll take any questions you might have.
Please got one real quick.
Sure.
So I know like the ad valorem, we're at 96%, we're at
Yeah.
97%. Is that, I mean, I know that's only 1%. Do you think we're going to be hit budget for the year? Do you think we're going to be under? Or do you have any thoughts on that? Or do you think we're all right on line? Revenues for the
We
year?
may be a little under.
Okay.
And so what ends up happening there is usually we see an increase in our ad valorem delinquent collections the year after. So if I had to guess, there are probably some folks that are maybe struggling to keep current on some of those type of payments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Adam is up next with the core statistics.
Hello, I'm Adam Wathen, Associate Director for System-Wide Services at the library, and this is the monthly statistical report. You'll see on the slide here that our physical circulation trend is trending right alongside last year in terms of circulation from our branches, but as I indicated last month, that the digital usage trend is going through the roof, that in July we had a lot of use, and I believe that's due to our Libby app and the adoption of the wide adoption of the Libby app. So we're very excited about that, and we're seeing quite a bit of digital content usage. And then on the next slide, you'll see that our visitation trend also went up in July, and we keep gaining ground toward pre-COVID levels in terms of visitation as well. Any questions about these slides? Very much.
Thank you, Adam. I'll invite Laura Hunt to the podium. She'll be giving the comprehensive library master plan report.
Thanks, Tricia. Thank you, Board, for having me today. I'm Laura Hunt, and I'm filling in for Scott Syme. And on behalf of the core team, I'm going to start with an update on the Antioch replacement project. So first, a design update. The design team continues to work on construction documents. This is the last phase of design, and the end product will be biddable drawings. We expect bidding to occur in October and to align with the Public Building Commission's schedule. We will begin construction without delay, and we'll be scheduling a special library board meeting via Zoom, seeking action on the guaranteed maximum price contract amendment. Moving on to an approvals update with the next slide. We have some legal agreements we presented to the Merriam City Council on August 22nd, and after a few questions, we received unanimous approval on our legal agreements. Thank you, David and Kelly, Fred, Jen, Juan, and Scott, who's not here today, and to our special guest, Nancy Hupp, former board member, for attending. The final stop for our legal agreements will be BOCC ratification. The bidding process will begin soon after, and then staff review, and we'll have a special board meeting on Wednesday, October 26th, for the library board to act on the guaranteed maximum price amendment to the construction manager's contract. So timing is pretty tight for this, and that's for a few reasons. Because of market conditions, the time that bids are valid is decreasing. And to break ground in 2022, we need to be on an early to mid-November PBC schedule, PBC meeting. So their process drives the date for our special board meeting. And the construction manager will be able to provide us an updated timeline, which we'll be able to reflect in our future months' reports. And on the next slide, we can talk about some next steps. Yep, this is the one. We have some BOC action on legal agreements. We're anticipating that in late September. For the title work and property transfer, we expect that to happen right after the BOCC action. And then, as I said earlier, construction on guaranteed maximum price amendment will be discussed in our special board meeting in October, and then at a PBC meeting in November. And if we skip ahead to, we got the next slide, which is the general timeline for the project. But if you go to the next slide, this is kind of a little zoomed in view of the BOCC action happening in September, and then special board meeting for the library board in October and the PBC in November. So that is Antioch. Do you guys have any questions about that? No? Okay, then I'll move on to the capital projects. Our first slide is of the capital improvement projects, and you can see that there's no changes to that. This is the same information we presented last month. And the next slide is our CRP anticipated timeline. Cedar Row opened back up on time in late August. Yay, Cedar Row. Next up is Gardner, and we're anticipating that this work will begin in early October and finish in December. Curbside service will still be available and open for patrons for the majority of that closure, but the building's interior will be closed to patrons. Patrons will still be able to request items from the collection and pick them up through curbside. And then the book drop will stay open so people can return their items to Gardner. And that ballot box that's at that location will also remain accessible during construction. For Oak Park, on that next line, you can see that the contract for that work was approved last month. We expect to seek approval for a temporary closure in October or November, with closure anticipated to begin around the first week of the year. The first of the year. And then Shawnee, we've kind of got that hanging, waiting in the wings for Q2 of 2023. Okay, and that's all I have. Any questions about CIP, CRP? Nope. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Laura. I'd like to invite Melanie Femler to the podium to talk about summer reading presentation. Melanie is also a fellow Norwal, if anyone's been tracking the Johnson County Library Blessings,
Yes.
Blessing of Norwals.
It is. Yes, I went back and forth on whether to wear that or this dress, and due to the temperature outside today, the dress won. Okay, thank you all for having me at the board meeting tonight to speak on behalf of summer reading. Before we dive into our Oceans of Possibility summer reading program, I want to take a minute to introduce the leadership team that puts all of our efforts behind this work. And so at the top there, you'll see Kristen Devonshire. She is an adult specialist and leads our summer launch and end of summer reading sub-team. Myself, elementary coordinator. YS librarian Sarah Matthews, who oversees our outreach distribution. Michelle Rainey, youth services specialist, and she oversees our programs and presenters. Jenny Reeves is also a YS librarian. Sorry, okay. And does our in-branch distribution. And then Jennifer Taylor, who works in our creative services department and does our artwork and promotion. So next slide, please. Our artist this year was Sophie Blackall. We went with the CSLP illustrator, and then Jen applies her amazing talents to the artwork, and so you'll see some of those images displayed throughout the remainder of this presentation. Okay, so our summer reading work actually began in February. February through April, we do our outreach book distribution. But this is the most updated version of Okay. This is the opportunity where we send out the form to schools, to our public schools and our community partners to see if they would like to receive books to put in students' hands before summer reading actually starts and out into the community. And so up here, you can see that 61 schools participated this year. We handed out 6,886 books. In total, the Title I schools, 16 out of 31 were Title I schools, and then Shawnee Mission has 35 schools, Blue Valley has 21. So we had pretty robust participation amongst our slide will outline our community partners. So we had 13 different community partners. A few of them are listed here, but again, those numbers totaled 5,373 books handed out to community organizations. So just a little over 11,000 books were put out into the community between February and April before summer reading even started. This is just a few of the comments we received from our community partners. We make an effort as part of our continuous improvement to survey participants, staff, and patrons throughout the process. Okay. go. Okay, and so then in June, we pivoted to our in-branch distribution. So back in all 14 branches this summer, we handed out a total of 22,526 books in the month of June alone. And as you can see, roughly 80% of those were in the Easy Picture, Easy Reader, and J chapter categories. So largely hitting that age group of birth to 6. Then in June and July, we moved into our program and presenters. Okay, so we kept our June programs virtual because we were bringing back the in-branch book distribution, and we knew that was going to bring in a lot of patron traffic. And so you can see here the June presenters that we had, including our summer reading launch. So that included author Ben Clanton, musician Ry Kincaid, author Alan Wolfe, and then with in-branch book distribution closing at the end of June, we moved to in-person programming to the delight of our patrons. And so we brought back fan favorites like Read to a Dog and Storytime with Priscilla Howe. And then note at the bottom, the Casey Civic Orchestra and Snag a Sea Monster with Mesner Puppet Theater were done in conjunction with our Movies in the Park. So we reestablished that partnership as well. And that was also part of our summer reading celebration, which also included the performers that you see there at the bottom. So along with Movies in the Park, other summer offerings that we had throughout both months was our popular walk and read program out at the parks, and then our sticker and short story contest for youth, and then our specialized summer reading group, Reading Book Club, Adelante Read, which is for our Spanish-speaking population. So just to highlight that briefly on the next slide, that is led by outreach librarian Christine Peterson, and so she really works within her network of families and organizations that she's connected to bring in students in grades 1 through 6 to keep them reading throughout the summer. So each of them receive 2 to 3 books, and so it maintains that mission of building in-home libraries and also creating those core groups around literacy and learning. So here's just a few images from the fun we had this summer. You can see our circus variety show, Read to a Dog, myself as the narwhal with Miss Priscilla Howe. You can see why I didn't wear that tonight. And here's a few images from our end of summer reading celebration. So along with the performers you saw, we had a snow cone truck, handed out free popcorn, more free books. Jen Taylor made beach balls and glow sticks and all kinds of stuff that had the JCL emblem on it. So it really was, and the weather was perfect. It cooled off that night, and so it really was a great night for all ages. Some of the staff feedback that we've gotten throughout our summer feedback process. Includes our Oceans of Possibility summer reading recap, and I'm open to any questions that you may have about our work. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions? I mean, one thing I note is 16 out of 31 of the Title I schools. I mean, what you think that they need it the most?
What's the question?
You would think that they would need it the most, or is there anything we can do to be, hit those especially? I mean, is it just the librarian didn't, or somebody at the school didn't return the form? Is it as simple as that? Is there any reason why? Because I think were we higher last year in terms of number of schools, is that correct?
Yes, yeah. And so I think some of that had to do too with returning to in-branch book distribution this summer. We wondered, and that was something that we tracked. The last 2 summers, we have not done in-branch book distribution, so we've had a higher number of participation, just knowing that that was the sole opportunity to get books to kiddos in that way. So yes, that's something that the team tracks, and we're getting ready to do our Plus Delta here in a couple weeks, and so we'll think about who those librarians are, what those schools are, and ways that we can reach them. I will also say there's been a high rate of turnover in our schools in the last couple years, and so sometimes you'll reach out to librarians at schools that are no longer there, or out of the building, or perhaps just for a variety of reasons may not be in.
Have you had conversations, the ones that did reply and had the books. Have you heard from them as far as what
yeah.
worked, what didn't work?
That's all part of the continuous improvement process, like I said. And so some of the feedback that you saw up there, was from them largely. They're just very appreciative. One shift that we are making in this coming year is making sure that the books that we select aren't necessarily the summer reading titles that we'll offer out in branches, but because we are prioritizing more at-risk populations, that they really focus on reading readiness. And so we'll do a lot less in terms of teen book ordering, and more maybe, in the easy reader category and easy picture category, to make sure that students have a nice variety of books at their reading level that will engage them.
It seems like we almost need to just nag those that are, especially those Title Ones, because, whether
Yeah.
it's a principal or librarian
Yep.
or somebody, because I think
sure.
that seems to be the group that really needs it the most, and they're probably least likely to be visiting on their own. And
Sure. Yeah, and I can say that our ordering process is becoming a lot more intentional too. So we used the money that we had been allocated in 2020 to purchase books, and then 2020 happened.
Yeah.
And so, we had ordered based on thinking that we would be open and offering books out in our branches, and then that wasn't the case. Well, that order has really carried over for the last 3 years. So we've had to make a couple supplemental orders along the way in order to be able to fulfill the requests of the participants who are wanting those books. But I think now that we have those 3-year trends of what schools have wanted, what organizations have wanted, and knowing that we're going to reframe our ordering process to make sure that we have books that weren't a general ordering for a summer reading summer that didn't happen, but that really build into what their requests have been over the last few years. Those will be important trends for us to look at and follow.
because this is the second year, third year it's in our budget, because it came from the foundation to start, correct? So,
Yep,
there anything
so those
else you
dollars
need
have been
from us then?
operationalized, which is nice, because now.
are you getting enough in that process?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, and we're going to place it. But there's always room for more, right?
Well-
Yeah. We're actually preparing that order here in October, so our goal is to have it in-house and ready to roll again in February.
I just think this is a very valuable
That's
thing to
incredible.
hit the ones that aren't. It's easy to sit back and just let the ones that are going to come. But I think this is something that we can do to try to get more, and especially the ones that are at risk. So,
You're singing my song. I was in public education for 16 years, so just know that we're out there fighting to reach all those kiddos, and the ones that we know are working hard in their reading courses every day. And
thank you for your work. Anybody else have any questions? Thank you.
all right.
Thanks, Melanie. It was great to see the virtual programming, but also all of the families come back in and with kids and kids in their care. So it was a real pleasure to see. And I know even beyond frontline staff, back of the house staff would come out and, join that excitement of seeing those kids. I did want to also note that we diversified our Read to a Dog because we had a cat. So we had a cat at Read to a Dog. So there you go. Cats are in. The other part of my report is the election recount support. So last month at this meeting, I got to brag about the election support that we provided that is very known to certainly this board and our citizens. And it was easy to brag about that support because it's planned and we can prepare for it, and we've done it before, and it's on the easy side of things. And then the Tuesday after I got to brag about that, there was a recount that was decided statewide, and so we had to put our money where our mouth is. And so the call was put out for 150 Johnson County staff to be reassigned to assist with the election recount. And so it was really preferred that you were there all 3 days for 10 hours a day. And so the county as a total reassigned 87 staff. We had 16 staff members that juggled their schedules, both work and professional and personally, and managers who juggled those schedules, and colleagues who picked up their work so that they could be let loose to go and recount. And so this was a different type of support. We were very happy to do it, but it wasn't planned. And so I really wanted to thank those 16 staff members, some of whom are here in the audience today. When we heard about the call for 150 staff people, I knew that that recount wasn't only the work of the election staff. That was really the work of all of county. It's not by our choice, but we wanted to make our decision to be part of that solution and help out in that part of democracy. So that's about 5% of our staff that volunteered, and I'm guessing if we'd had maybe 1 or 2 days more notice, we would have had another 50% who would have volunteered. It's catnip for librarians to be involved in things like that that are meaningful and need a lot of detail and attention. I saw several of the people in the days after who are staff that volunteered, and they were physically exhausted. The attention to detail that's needed, the seriousness of the recount, and that important work. So I really wanted to thank all of them and brag about them when it wasn't easy. So thank you all.
Now, my understanding is they had to pay for that recount. Is that correct? That may be a Janae question.
We don't know at this point if there's going to be any amount that is not covered through the Secretary of State's office. The people who had requested the recount were required to put up money, a bond, to show that they had the means to pay for it. And I think it was a little more costly than we had anticipated, but we even the board, we haven't had the final numbers yet, but I'm so glad that you mentioned that, Tricia, because that was a huge, huge help. That was an unexpected, last minute, all hands on deck. So thank you to all the library staff who helped with that. Really, really appreciate it.
As a citizen and a, chair of this board, I would hope that, that we, even though it's appreciative on all the work and that was needed and has to be done, but still, I think, when it was not a very close race, that hopefully that, we get fairly compensated or reimbursed for the time lost, so.
Absolutely, and those are two things that I have brought up that I would like to see the legislature take up next session is, one, in the cases of recounts, that counties are held harmless in terms of the financial cost. And secondly, that there be some parameters put in place that a recount is only done within certain amounts of differences, that it's not just for fun.
Agree, I don't want to, get rid of recounts, that can be very important, but that's all I'll say about that.
And then the last update is about our annual library board retreat. This will be on Wednesday, October 19th from 3 to 7 p.m. And we will be having this at one of the county buildings, the Sunset Building, that some of you may be familiar with. It's a sustainable building. They have several wonderful rooms, and so we'll be out there. 119th and Ridgeview, essentially, is that area. There's a Dairy Queen out there, so you can hit that on the way and on the way home. The agenda, which the chair and vice chair and I have talked about, will generally be, we'll look at our annual review of our administrative regulations. So the policies will have a chunk that there may be some changes to, and then another chunk that we have reviewed and no changes are needed. So we'll handle that during that review or that retreat. And then we'll have time that you all can review and talk a little bit more deeply about the scope of the DeSoto, Spring Hill, and Edgerton projects, which we presented last month. You've had some of the information, that way you can just have a talk about what scope would you like to see those buildings be refreshed, and your expectations that go along with that. And then the second or third agenda item will be the Comprehensive Library Master Plan. Several pieces of this. One, looking at a little bit out in the future as far as the future bonds and our budget and how that syncs up. an update or maybe a little overview, some context on the Comprehensive Library Master Plan. We wrote that in 2014 and 2015, and so we want to make sure everybody's up to speed on kind of the history of that. And then you all can discuss the prioritization of the Comprehensive Library Master Plan projects. So that's the priority for that retreat. If all of that discussion and prioritizing occurs, we'll also have time for you all to have a discussion about fines. Over the past several years, pre-COVID, we had talked with various boards about the direction of going fine-free or not going fine-free, and all shades in between that. So I want to have you, give you a chance to talk about that, and then also update you on our work with the Olathe Library and our interlocal. It's a partnership we've had since the late 80s, and we're revamping it as Olathe Library has had some changes, and they are now a city department, so we're refreshing that. So that's the not very drafty agenda for the board retreat. So.
Tricia, would it be possible, and actually Patty, probably this is more you, to see if there is a morning, afternoon, evening, whatever, to have the board, if they are so inclined, tour our 3 buildings so that we can actually see them before we do a deep dive discussion. It's been 5 years since my NEO, and none of those are my local library, so
Yes.
it probably would not go amiss to actually have boots on the ground, eyes in the building, so that we can actually visualize that. I am a visual person when it comes to that kind of stuff. So seeing a layout on a piece of paper, and however we need to do that to not make Fred uncomfortable.
You already guessed.
You got it, yeah.
I figured.
Mentioning Kansas Open Meetings Act consideration.
However,
Yes, in
would
small
give
groups.
Fred no heartburn.
Right. We want him to sleep at night. Yes, I think that's a great idea. We can certainly plan several times to have at each location somebody there that can tour.
Even if it's just like little open house or
Yes.
however you guys logistically
Yeah.
would like to handle that. So there is not an issue, but we can gather information in person.
Yeah.
That would, I think, possibly be of benefit to the board as a whole, and if not anybody else, at least me, and then I can be special and Fred doesn't have to be worried.
We can make that happen.
You're already special. This will be just another reason.
And that concludes my report.
Thank you. All right, I think we're moving on to the consent agenda. Any motions?
I move the Library Board of Directors approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, it passed. What a surprise. All right. You gonna say something, Tricia?
Nope.
I think we don't have any old business, so we're moving on to the new business.
So welcome Michelle Olson. She's our circulation manager. She will handle action item A.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michelle Olson. As Tricia mentioned, I am the Circulation Services Manager for Johnson County Library. I will be introducing today's briefing sheet on ARM 20-9110, increasing the denial of borrowing privileges limit. The change in front of you is intended to raise our denial of borrowing privileges limit from $25 to $50. This would allow patrons who owe up to $50 the ability to continue to check out materials and increase patron access. This change saves us approximately $16,000 annually in vendor fees and aligns us with other libraries in the region. Do you have any questions for me?
Mitra, take it away.
Thank you. I don't have questions for you, but there's been a lot of things that we've already talked about that I thought of when I read this briefing sheet. that being the fines associated with the library. And then David, also you alluded to the need to get books in the hands of our low-income patrons through Title I schools in the summer. So if you bear with me, I've written some things down. So although I do find it desirable to increase the level of fines before blocking a member's usage, I would like for us as a board to strongly consider doing away with late fees altogether. And so it does sound like our very astute county librarian has already thought of this in coming to our board retreat. But just some other comments about this. In the 2019 midwinter meeting, the ALA adopted a resolution declaring monetary fines as a form of social inequity, and I don't think we want to perpetuate this in Johnson County. Large city libraries across the country are eliminating fines, citing equitable access as a chief reason. Fines can be a roadblock to those who stand the most to benefit from library services, such as children's, teens, and low-income families. If we were to do a study of Johnson County patrons with the highest fines, I believe we would see our lower income residents disproportionately making up the bulk of this group, consistent to what is seen in many other metro areas across the country. We should be removing barriers to library usage instead of imposing more. Fine-free libraries can also increase children's literacy. Libraries promote a love of reading outside of academics, and fear of fines can prevent low-income families from using many of the library's resources and activities. Before fines were dropped in 2019 at the Chicago Public Library, 1 in 5 block cards belonged to children under the age of 14. There is little evidence fines incentivize library patrons to return materials, and the argument that fines have been used to support and maintain libraries is false, as income from fines is unreliable, especially if it's never paid. After the Chicago Public Library went fine-free, thousands of users whose fees were forgiven returned to the library for new cards. Readers checked out more books overall than before, and returns for the 5 months following the new rules increased to 1,650 every month compared to 900 a month before the fines were eliminated. From a cost standpoint, St. Paul, Minnesota libraries found they spent $250,000 annually to collect only $215,000 in fines. I would love our staff to look at a system where there are no late fees for books, but explore the possibility of replacement cost if a book is not found after a certain period. At that point, it would be considered loss. Replacement fees may result in a blocked card, but wouldn't prevent a patron from using computers, attending programs, or using digital materials. This is just one option, and I know you librarians are way smarter than we here on the board are, so I know you probably have many ideas of how to make this happen. If we are providing access to ideas, information, experiences, and materials that support and enrich people's lives, then let's do it for all of our patrons and not perpetuate social inequity among our community. So that being said, with my statement, although I am in favor in this, I don't see that it's necessary, and I wish we would table it until we can make a decision about fines, but I also think we should go ahead and do it so we're not continuing people from using our libraries. Thank you for listening to my rant.
Thank you, very well thought of, so.
Actually, on the back of that, in terms of our discussion coming towards at the retreat, do we have numbers on what are, oops, I was late fines and I set a book on fire fines kind of thing? Because to me, there's a huge difference between I was late returning something and my dog literally did eat it. In terms of, like you said, with the replacement costs and stuff. And so is there a way to look at the breakdown of that, what the instances are?
We certainly can look at the data. We may not have the intent behind the overdue or lost materials or materials that need to be replaced, but we certainly can,
Just really, if we could get a feel for how often it's, I was running late versus it exploded.
Right.
Would be useful just in terms of what the actual cost is, because a book being late doesn't cost the system anything. The book's still being loved.
Right.
And it's kind of arbitrary if it is still being loved on a calendar or not.
Right.
Versus actual destruction of public property.
Right.
And then that does bear a cost to the system as a whole. And I would like to kind of see
We can definitely
a
get that.
metric there of what the instances are with that.
So I will say that in kind of researching this, the libraries that have instituted replacement fees for books, it happened when a book was 30 days late, and if the book was found and returned, the replacement fee was dropped.
I think that would be fantastic.
And that's just one option, but, yeah.
Because that really would be my only concern is what and then also, what do we actually spend to send something to collections? Like, what is that costing JCL versus if it's just keep the book a couple more days? Because that is a real cost to us. And so I would be curious to know what that was.
I do have, in looking at the brief that it mentioned in the past year, I do have that cost.
Okay.
And we spent $31,000 on unique services to assist us with the return of materials and fees from patrons.
So we spend $31,000, what do we recover?
Oh, it's 7 to 1. So for every dollar spend, we recover $7.
Okay. So at least it's effective, if not a massive pain in the backside. Okay. At least there's that, I suppose. If we're going to do it, we're doing it well.
Thank you, David. I really appreciate your comments, Mitra, very, very much, because it's something actually that's been on my mind recently. And in fact, there was a whole big Facebook discussion about it recently when someone said they had paid their fines. But interestingly enough, just this past week, I had met with a constituent, an older person, and the subject of libraries came up, and she said, I don't go anymore because I can't always ensure that I can get the book back to the library, so I just don't even go, which I thought was so tragic. And as we're seeing a growing aging population in Johnson County, we have to think of the folks on the other end of the lifespan who are also impacted by fines from the library. So I really appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Anybody else? I know we're going to have a bigger discussion at the board retreat. Maybe now is not, is there anything we want to know before the retreat other than what, like Beth, or what we've already asked?
This would be effective immediately. We vote on this, and tomorrow the limit is 50 instead of 25. Then I would be inclined that we go ahead and vote on this so that at least we can take a little bit of pressure off until we can have a further discussion.
But do we need any other information?
I
from the
certainly
staff
don't.
For the discussion, for the
certainly don't.
October discussion?
Yeah, I think there's two things. I think one, it seems like we're ready to vote on that, but just while we're on the topic, is there anything we want to know before we have the much bigger discussion, which is to do away with the fines? Is everybody?
I'm good with.
And maybe what other libraries in the region are doing with fines? I mean, Meecher had some good examples, but Kansas City, Mid-Continent, what have you?
Yeah, we can pull all of that.
Yeah, I was just I've always been curious on just,
When I was doing research,
yeah.
I came across about 18 larger metropolitan areas. And the New York system has done it within the last year. Many of those did it in 2019, pre-COVID.
Yeah, we've kind of briefly thought about this in the past, but I think we were going to have this discussion, then COVID happened, and then we tabled it until now. So, I mean, my question is does it cause problems about people waiting? But, if we've seen that, we don't have to answer that today, because I think we're just going to vote on this today, so. Yes,
David?
please. Oh, Janae, sorry.
I just had a couple other comments. One, I would think a big question is what would be the impact on the budget?
Yeah.
And then second, my question is in regard to this action item. what is magical about $50? What if it were $100? I'm just asking, is there some reason why it was, because from 25 to 50 doesn't seem like much, and if we're talking about trying to remove barriers, why not $100?
Right. I think we were looking at what other systems in the metro were doing, and we also are working with Olathe Public Library on this. And so as a partner library, we need to step together. And so that the $50 limit had been the topic of discussion there.
Well, could we change that to $100 at this point? Because we can absolutely do what we want to do without partnering and making sure our align with Olathe.
I second that motion. Let's do this.
I mean, was there any reason that you chose 50 other than that? I mean, could we go ahead and make it more?
I don't see why not. You couldn't make it more, certainly. One of the things we were looking at here was looking at inflation costs. We looked at one adult fiction book replacement cost was $27.50. And that alone would push someone over the limit to be unable to access library services. So we wanted to be respectful in terms of the amount of materials that is acceptable to be lost by a patron before holding them accountable to, paying for fines and fees. And so we settled on the $50 limit, but I don't think we need to stop there if the library board is so inclined.
So if I could make a suggestion that we give Michelle time to talk with our partner, they may also be in agreement, but they could figure something between 50 and 100. It may end up being 100, but in good partnership, I'd like to step with them.
Okay.
Well, now that raises a question that I have now. So is Olathe currently, is their limit currently 50?
Their limit is, we use an ILS system together, so their limit is $25, like ours is currently, and that is where a patron is blocked. And so having that conversation with Olathe would be a joint conversation because we do share an ILS, and our ILS does manage how patron accounts function within our system, whether a patron is blocked or not blocked due to fines or fees.
So once we, like Bethany was saying, once we vote today, if it is increased to 50, tomorrow morning, the limit now in Johnson County Library System is 50, but in Olathe, it would still be 25?
No, so I will say, with it raised, there will still need to be a communication plan and rollout to our staff because this would be a change and a patron change in how we interact with patrons. So we would need to communicate and educate our staff in helping patrons and assisting them with this new motion. And Olathe Library, our partners that we're working with, know that I'm here at the library board meeting today. And so they knew that this was going to be a topic of discussion at our board meeting today. And we have a meeting next week on the 15th of September to kind of move forward from the decision that is being made today so that we can prepare all of the training and rollout that may need to occur to put this in place.
So it won't be tomorrow.
Right. So then if it's not going to be tomorrow, and there's still going to be time to talk to Olathe, then I don't see why we would delay increasing it if we're still going to talk to them anyway, and then we can say, hey, our board voted to increase it to $150. But my next question then becomes, how long does the rollout take if the retreat is currently scheduled for October 19, and sounds like on the 19th, we may be making some decisions that eliminates this problem altogether. Is this something that's going to be able to be rolled out before then?
I think that we can definitely take into consideration the board retreat, and the timeline can be ours to determine after the library board makes that decision. But we can have those conversations with Olathe in anticipation that the levels may be raised to even higher limits, such as $100 or $150. We can certainly have that conversation.
$50 seems reasonable at 5 p.m. today, which is what's in front of us. So I would just say that there's times for us to look beyond this, but I think what's in front of us, I think that's what we should execute.
Sounds like you want to make a motion.
Yes, ma'am. I move that Johnson County Library Board of Directors approve the raising of the denial of borrowing privilege limits from $25 to $50.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, it passes. Moving on. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle. I invite, or I welcome Kinsley Riggs to the podium to handle action item B.
Thank you. I'm Kinsley Riggs, the Adult Services Manager. I'm here to discuss the MOU about the donation of 3D printers. We were contacted by Ultimaker, which is a company that provides 3D printers and accessories, and they're a current vendor for our 3D printers that we use in the Black & Veatch makerspace. They offered 2 refurbished 3D printers that they would like to donate to the makerspace at a value of approximately $13,000. This donation is an immediate upgrade to the machines that we currently have. We would take the current machines out of the space and use them for projects, programs, and outreach initiatives throughout the counties and in our other 13 locations. And in case you don't know what a 3D printer is or does, it's basically a printer that prints similar to a plastic filament. It's not really plastic. And you use a software to design your 3D printed object, and then you use the printer to extrude a melted filament, and you create things like a TARDIS.
Whose TARDIS is it?
You want to pass those out to the?
I will, yeah. We have a leaf. You can see kind of the detail in. We printed the Did You Hear Library podcast logo, and then this one's pretty nifty. You can pair it with other things in the makerspace like electronics. This is a keyboard casing, right? So the outside is the 3D printed filament that has electronics on the inside that plugs into the USB drive, and then you can use it kind of like a joystick on the computer. Those are some of the things you can do with the 3D printer. We're also most recently partnering with Medac to print, to 3D print trachea to train the paramedics and the EMS staff on a new procedure to use in the field. So those are just some of the things you can make with a 3D printer.
You can also print D&D figures and
you
other
can
game
use it a lot for
pieces.
gaming, yes. So we are coming to you with this MOU mainly as a precaution because it's in state statute that you are allowed to accept gifts as a library board and that the county librarian is authorized to accept gifts as well. So we have this MOU to outline our expectations.
Well, this is super cool.
Good, any questions? Would you like to make a motion?
Yes. I move that the Johnson County Library Board of Directors approve the memorandum of understanding with Ultimaker in order to accept the donation of 2 3D printers.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passed.
Thanks them for being very cool. I like new toys.
Yes.
I'd like to invite Dave to the podium. The slide that is in front of you is missing this, but it, on the board agenda, it's action item C, which is Fred had mentioned during the council report. So.
Thank you, Tricia, and hello, board. Yeah, so this item is us taking action on the resolution for the 2023 revenue neutral rate. Essentially, the 2023 budget, we intend to collect more ad valorem revenue than what we have or anticipate to collect for 2022. So this resolution is just basically acknowledgement of that and letting you know that we plan to at least collect $1 more than what was levied for the 2022 budget. So with that, I'll take any questions you might have. I thought Fred did a great job of covering kind of the why, but
Before we get too far, I'm going to ask if there's anybody public comments that need to be made. Don't see anybody, so we will move on. Does anybody have any questions for Dave? I think we've talked about this in the past, so.
I move to adopt a resolution of the Johnson County Library Board of Directors to exceed the revenue neutral rate in the levy of property taxes in support of the budget for the Johnson County Library Taxing District for fiscal year 2023.
Second.
Matrix second, all right. Patty, I'll turn it over to you for a moment.
All right. Calling roll. Board Member Sealing, see she is absent. Board Member Riley.
Here.
Board Member Mendoza.
Say yes.
Yes, right here.
Yes.
Yes.
Board Member Templin.
Yes.
Board Member Griffith.
Yes.
Board Member Kilgore.
Yes.
And Board Chair Sims.
Yes,
That motion passes 6-0.
thank you. All right, thank you, Dave.
And then the final action item is the Antioch Library replacement name, and Jen Monken will talk with us about this.
Good evening. As you might remember, we brought you information a couple of months ago regarding the naming of the new Antioch building, which is in the board's purview to name. At that time, you asked for some more work on the ideas presented. A naming committee was selected by David Sims. Scott Simon and I met with the group several weeks ago to discuss. The briefing sheet before you this evening presents the suggested name, which is the Miriam Plaza Library. The rationale for this revolved around brevity, the geographical context that the name provides, and consistency with our other branches. Committee members, did you have any other things you wanted to add?
No, it was a fairly lengthy conversation for, I think, kind of a simple process, but it was thoroughly discussed, y'all, I promise.
All right, thank you very much for your time and commitment to that. And so, would anybody like to make a motion?
Alrighty, I move to approve the naming committee's recommendation to set the name of the new library in Miriam as Miriam Plaza Library.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Oh, all right, we have a new name. All right, with that, does anybody have any other comments before we adjourn before 5:54 or 5:42? All
I
right,
move that the Library Board of Directors adjourn.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. All right, bye-bye. Thank you, everybody. See you next month.
Thank you.